Welcome to Be Renewed. This show shares tips and inspiration for mental wellness, but it's not a substitute for professional care. If you need help, please reach out to a licensed professional. You may submit your question for our show by calling, texting, or WhatsApping 671-686-9999. Your questions will be anonymous. We will not use your name to protect your identity. Now, here's your host for Be Renewed, mental health provider, Shion Shironishi.
All right, welcome to Be Renewed, where we all about renewing our mind for a transformed life and relationship. I'm Shion Shironishi, and today we're going to talk about a topic. I titled it, Why Marriage Matters, and how it affects your heart, your mind, and your relationship. It really depends on your relationship, your marriage. And so we want to talk about how God designed marriage to be and what He has to say about it. And so we're going to dive right in. So I know that a lot of couples live together. They build family together. They share finances together. But maybe they've never actually got married. And this is a topic that I encounter quite a bit in my counseling at my job that I do. And the patients, they come to me for depression and anxiety. And I mention this a lot, but many times my counseling we end up talking about relationship. And one of the theme is living together with a partner, common law. And they talk about how, man, we struggle so much. And the answer sometimes it comes down to is maybe there needs to be more commitment. And so when we are called to be in a relationship, God desires us to go to a deeper level. And especially for two special people, a couple that God has ordained to be together, He does want us to experience marriage. And this message, we're not trying to condemn anyone. Many people do this for practical reasons, right? Just to live together as a common law for financial reason, and simply because maybe it's a cultural mindset. And I know I do see that a lot on this island of Guam. But, in other places too, you see this often, that people don't get married and they end up living together. But the deeper question that I have for you today is this actually the best design for long-term relationships? And more importantly, is this what God intended for us? And one of the biggest psychological difference between living together and marriage is the commitment clarity. When a couple lives together without marriage, there's often an unspoken exodus. If things get hard or if conflict arises, if maybe there's like a bit of a change to your feeling, maybe one of the partner thinks, oh, I could leave anytime. It's easier to leave if we're not married. Now, that might sound small, but psychologically, it changes how people invest in a relationship. Marriage creates what researchers call structural commitment. It is a structural commitment. So there's a public covenant, family gets involved in it, there's a legal recognition, and a vow that you make in front of a bunch of witnesses. And because of that, couples are more likely to work through problems instead of walking away from them. And when there's no covenant, a commitment, people often treat the relationship as temporary or conditional. And so, but when there is a covenant, commitment, people begin to think we're in this together. It's a big difference. And I know it is because many of my patients have said so. They have actually said that there is a huge difference between the marriage commitment and just being a common law, just being a partner, boyfriend and girlfriend living together. And another important factor is emotional safety. Marriage, it's just a piece of paper, the certificate. And when I'm talking about marriage, guys, I'm not talking about just getting that certificate. I'm talking about two people coming together and actually saying we're making a covenant commitment. And so, but that piece of paper does represent something powerful. It represents a promise, a responsibility, and a public commitment. And psychologically, commitment builds trust and stability. And this is why marriage does show that people, when they get into it, they're like, I want to commit more into this person that I'm about to go into life with. And children especially thrive when they see a stable, committed union between their parents. In many cases, couples avoid marriage. It can unintentionally create uncertainty in the relationship. And so one partner may silently wonder, are they fully committed to me? That's something that my patients do come up with, saying the questions come up where they're wondering if their partner is actually committed to them, and they're wondering why. Maybe even sometimes one of them actually says, I wonder why they're not asking me to marry them. You could tell, obviously, usually it's a woman asking this question. Why isn't my partner not asking me to marry them? Are they not fully committed to me? And so there is this uncertainty in this relationship when there's no marriage, actual commitment that occurred. And so the marriage answers this question clearly. Are they fully committed to me? And I want to speak to, especially for our men, to the men for a moment. Many women are looking for security in a relationship. They want to know they're safe. They want to know that the relationship is stable. And they want to know that the man they are building their life with is someone truly that they are committed in the relationship. And so security is one of the deepest emotional needs in many women, and we really need to provide this. It is really a thing. And when that security is present, and the respect will grow, and there will be so much peace in that relationship. But when that security is uncertain, that's when tension will begin to grow. And sometimes, men, you may say, why doesn't she respect me? Why does she question me so much? Why does she seem frustrated at me all the time? And in some cases, the deeper issue is not simply they have an attitude problem, but it is simply that she does not feel secure in the relationship. And if a woman feels that relationship could end at any moment, she feels like the commitment is unclear, and that investing her life without a clear promise would be a little bit discouraging, and it can create anxiety in them. And that instability is that what leads to frustration, defensiveness, and conflict. And so marriage can bring clarity to that uncertainty, and the marriage communicates something powerful to a woman. I am choosing you, publicly. When you're choosing to marry someone, you do have a wedding ceremony, or even if it's a court ceremony, you are publicly choosing to say, this is my wife. This is the woman I'm going to commit to, and I'm committing to her permanently. I'm not going to just leave any time. I'm making this covenant commitment to this woman, and I'm building my future with her. That kind of security can change the emotional atmosphere of a relationship drastically. I mean, it is amazing when I have a patient that comes in and they're having this problem here, and a woman is saying, I just don't know if I trust my partner. I mean, I don't know why they don't want to marry me, and they've been together for almost 10 years. And when they do, and the man does decide to commit and to marry that woman, the change that occurs in that relationship is amazing. And you could see more love, you could see more peace, you could see more hope. And not just that, but going back to, let's say they already have children, the children starts to feel more stable. They see that, oh, my mom and dad is willing to commit, and I feel so happy and so secure. I've seen this many times over and over. And it is an amazing thing, and it's a simple thing of committing to each other. Now, there are some common law relationship or dating situation that are actually unsafe. There are many relationships out there that could have abuse that's involved, and that could be physical, emotional, or psychological. And in these moments, instead of thinking about marriage, it may be healthier to consider leaving that person. If you really don't feel safe, and this is just not women, this is for men also. If you don't feel safe in that relationship, I would not consider marriage, but consider stepping away. Abuse is not something that should be ignored or tolerated. It is not healthy, and most likely it will not improve simply by getting married. Some people think that if there is a problem or abuse going on, they say, if we just get married, it would get better. These are the moments I really discourage you. And in many cases, if abuse is involved, the pattern of abuse will continue unless that person receives extensive counseling, gets professional help, and demonstrates real and sustained change over time. And safety and well-being must always come first. So don't compromise at these moments. I'm not just saying just get married to anyone, but you must feel safe in that relationship. And if there is abuse involved, you want to be careful. You want to walk cautiously. And hey, look, I've helped relationships that was abusive, and they were able to turn it around and eventually get married. But not everyone has the same story. Some patients would have to leave their partner because it was so destructive and the abuse was so severe that they had to walk away, and they did improve in their mental health because no longer they were in this destructive relationship. And I myself, if you're in this situation, and again, I kind of want to point to the men that if you're in a situation like this, there's nothing to be ashamed of. It does happen. Abuse does occur to a man also. And if you are struggling to be vulnerable to admit that you're in an abusive relationship, I would say that, hey, I've been there before. I've had a relationship with a woman that was emotionally and psychologically abusive, and it was really hard to admit to that and to say, man, I'm a strong man. Why am I not strong to deal with this? But it's okay, and we have to aim for safe relationship. So we'll come back and talk more about why it's important to commit and to go into marriage.
This is Be Renewed, tips and inspiration for mental wellness. We're taking a quick break, but there's more encouragement to come, so stay with us. Got a question? Call, text, or WhatsApp us at 671-686-9999. We will not use your name on the show. Today's programming is brought to you in part by Paradise Smiles Dental Clinic, owned and operated by Dr. William C. Hightower II. Dr. Hightower offers general dentistry services to the people of Guam. They welcome new patients and accept most major insurances, including Select Care, Take Care, Net Care, Stay Well, MetLife, United Concordia, TRICARE, Delta Dental, HDS, Cigna, Medicaid, and MIP. Paradise Smiles is located in Tamuning on Governor Carlos Camacho Road, near the Oka Payless. Reach them by phone at 671-646-2010. We shall never know all the good a simple smile can do.
The
You're
news
tuned
never
in to Be Renewed, where faith, practical wisdom, and mental wellness meet. We welcome your questions by phone, text, or WhatsApp at 671-686-9999. We will not use your name for any question you submit. Here's your host, Shion Shironishi.
So we're back, and I want to address something I hear from many men. When it talks about dating someone for so long, and we're talking about common laws, some say, I want to get married, but I don't have the money yet. They feel like they need to have a big wedding, a big reception, a big celebration. But the truth is, you don't need a big fancy ceremony to get married. Marriage is not about the size of the wedding, but it's the most important part is the commitment that you're making, the promise that you're making that, hey, I want to be your partner and I'm going to be here permanently with you for the rest of our lives. And you can get married simply. Have a small ceremony. You could go to the court. You could have it at a church. Some people even have it in someone's backyard and just have a pastor. You don't have to have a huge gathering, but a few witnesses. And I've been to so many weddings, big ones, but also small ones. And you know what? To be honest with you, I enjoy the small weddings because it just seems so intimate, so special, and you really invite the people that are meaningful to you in your lives. And it's nice that those people, you have intimate moment and they are the witness to see that you're making this commitment. And the power of marriage is not how expensive the event is. The power of marriage is the covenant that you're making. I know I'm going to repeat this word, covenant, but this is a special word that we're trying to understand that what we need to have in our relationship, especially this romantic relationship. And so don't be discouraged, man. If you can't afford a big wedding, it's okay. It's all right. That's not the big part about this. It's about the covenant that you're making. And there's so many ways to make it special, but small. You could be creative. You could do so many things. Some of my friends, they went to their first date site, the place that they went on a date for the first time. And they made that place look special. And they just had a pastor there and a few friends and family members, and they got married there. And that was meaningful, especially for the couple, because that's where they started their journey. And you can just be creative with this. You don't have to do what everyone's doing out there, spend thousands and thousands of dollars and to have this big ceremony. And you know what? It's really not worth it because to be honest with you, I think a lot of people go into debt for this big weddings that they're having, and it's just not worth going into your marriage with a debt. It's not a good idea. We don't want that. We don't want to bring conflict into our marriage, but we want to start with the covenant and to start with some beautiful start in the beginning to your journey together. And so now let's talk about God's design for the marriage. From the very beginning of Scripture, marriage was never presented as just two people sharing life together informally. It was always presented as a covenant union. And we could see this in Genesis chapter 2, verse 24. It says, "Therefore, a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and they shall become one flesh." That phrase, one flesh, is extremely important. It doesn't just mean physical intimacy. It means complete union, spiritually, emotionally, physically, socially, even financially. Two lives becoming fully intertwined. In the Bible, one flesh means that relationship is no longer temporary or casual. It is a new family unit created by God. And it's awesome. It's awesome to become one with someone. And it's also why the verse says a man must leave and cleave. Leave meaning, a new priority is formed. You have a new person in your life that you're like, she is the number one person other than God that I need to prioritize. And to cleave, meaning to be permanently joined together. And the Hebrew word used there meaning to cling, to hold fast, to be permanent bonded. So it's really man, this is a really special experience, just becoming one and united together. This kind of union is not meant to exist in a relationship where the commitment is undefined or reversal at any moment. This is why throughout the Bible, marriage is always described as a covenant before God and not simply two people choosing to live together. God is involved when you are getting married. He is your witness, the biggest witness, and he is seeing the covenant that you're making. And this is Malachi chapter 2, verse 14. You could find it there that a covenant, that the marriage covenant is made before the Lord. And so you are definitely saying, in front of God, I am choosing this person to be my partner permanently, forever. And that's very different from a relationship that can quietly dissolve when life becomes difficult. And you're in this moment of, okay, I could leave anytime, versus, hey, I made a permanent promise and decision and commitment in front of God, and I want to take this serious. The Bible also teaches that if someone is struggling with sexual temptation or finds it difficult to wait, it's better to enter into marriage rather than live in constant internal conflict. So even the Bible kind of puts it this way, and we know this, that the Bible teaches us, thou shalt not commit adultery. It does encourage us not to practice premarital sex, and maybe you might ask why. We could do a show on that too, another day. But we see it in the Bible that, hey, if you're doing this kind of intimacy, sexual intimacy already in a relationship, it's better to just go into marriage. It's basically saying that this is how serious it is when you're becoming one physically, and you're going to end up bringing emotional and spiritual things into it too. And we want to, if we're doing those things, to commit. Now, I'm not just trying to tell everyone, hey, just get married if you're doing that thing. But the Bible is just saying that, hey, this is how serious it is when we are becoming this intimate with each other. It's essentially what God was intended was that for in marriage. And so, hey, we got to commit. If you're doing those things, hey, are you serious about this? Maybe you need to commit to this relationship even more and go into marriage. In 1 Corinthians chapter 7, the teaching encourages marriage as a God-given way to manage natural human desires within a covenant relationship. And when you are able to go into this committed relationship and then having this intimacy, it does create a stronger bond. I know for most cases, sometimes we struggle with these, and I, for myself, did also. But God can really turn things around, even if we might have made mistakes in the past, or as a individual or as a couple. God can help us. God forgives, and God heals, and God restores. And so I would say, hey, if any part of you in your relationship that you're in right now, you are being, not just physically, but also, again, emotionally, mentally, spiritually intimate, really consider, maybe this is something that I really need to seek God for wisdom, and I need to be committing to this rather than staying in this relationship that it's almost like you could leave anytime. And sometimes people believe they must wait perfectly before marriage, but Scripture shows that covenant marriage can be a healthy and holy structure for those who are struggling with self-control. And it's better if right now, if you want to just turn it around and just say, God, teach me and help me, and to be more committed and to really follow your footsteps in a healthy relationship, healthy marriage, He is willing to do that and to help you. And so I really encourage you, if you're in these situations, to seek God for guidance. And I definitely did that. And I definitely, in a situation in the past where I was too physically intimate with my past relationships. And it were moments where I said, what am I doing? I really got to think this through. And am I really committing to this woman by doing these things? And I'm, if I am doing these things, I do need to consider marriage. And, even though we didn't get married in those relationships, and I struggled a lot to understand more about why am I getting to this relationship, I realized that I didn't fully understand what it was about. And when I understood this relationship is supposed to represent God, our relationship with God, and how sacred it is, how covenant is involved, and how we need to commit, I realized that I want to be with a woman that I could represent this type of covenant that is similar to God's covenant, and how I want to commit to someone that I can together serve God. And God did help me, and God did bring me someone who is my current wife now, who we both have same value, same principle, and, we committed to God together. And it was something that it was much easier for us because we learned from our past experiences. And so when we got together, God already taught us about what marriage is about, what relationship is about. And we were at a healthy place with our spirituality, mentality, and even in our emotional health. And so it was easy for us to make this decision and to commit to each other. And I look back to the past and I say, I am glad from those experiences because I learned. And I know that we all could learn from these experiences, even if maybe you're in a relationship right now that you may say, you know what? I don't have that type of covenant, type of relationship with this person. Maybe God is asking me to reconsider this relationship. God can really help you, and He could lead you to the right direction. And if God is, powerful, these small things like our relationship, He can handle it. He can help us. He can get us through them. And so don't feel like, hey, I got to make this work. That's not what I'm saying, just to get married and just make it work kind of thing. But I'm really saying that this is how serious, if you're getting so intimate with each other, so serious, or you've been in common law for many years, this is something that, hey, God intended this to be something really serious, and it's a covenant, a commitment that He wants us to have. And so these are the questions you need to ask yourself and start talking about it, maybe with your partner. And the best person to come to, other than obviously praying to God, is you can always talk to your pastor. You can always talk to a counselor. People come to me, like I said, and ask me these questions all the time. How can I improve our relationship? And so when we come back, we'll see more about what it means to commit and to the marriage.
This is Be Renewed, the show for anyone ready to refresh their mind, heal relationships, and embrace life fully. There's more to come, so please stay tuned. We welcome your anonymous questions by phone, text, or WhatsApp at 671-686-9999. Need peace of mind? Struggling with relationships? Want to grow your faith? Join mental health care provider Shion Shironishi for Be Renewed, a faith-inspired mental wellness radio show dedicated to helping you refresh your mind, strengthen your relationships, and live a life full of purpose and peace. Each episode offers practical strategies, inspiring stories, and actionable insights. Shion will guide you in transforming your thoughts, emotions, and daily habits. You can anonymously call, text, or WhatsApp your questions, and we'll submit your questions for the show. We will not use your name to protect your privacy. Reach out at 671-686-9999. That's 671-686-9999. Whether you're looking to improve your mental health, navigate life's challenges, or grow spiritually, Be Renewed provides encouragement and tools to help you live your best life. Tune in Mondays from 5 to 6 p.m. for Be Renewed with Shion Shironishi. That's 5 to 6 p.m. Mondays right here on Joy FM. This is Be Renewed. Each week we'll explore tools, insights, and stories to help you transform your mind and your life. Now back to the show with Shion Shironishi.
All right, so we're going to go into the covenant versus convenience. You know, the difference between common law living and marriage often comes down to one word, and it does come up a lot in my counseling with certain couples, and it's the covenant versus convenience. And so, you know, convenience says, I'm with you while things work. But covenant says, I'm with you even when things are hard. And that's why I do think that many times couples that are not married, they end up struggling and they come to me because when things get hard, it's almost like, man, I could just leave this relationship. And it's because you've just got into the convenience of the relationship. It's almost like you started dating and you started to maybe live together. Maybe you did have a child together. You know, you just kept living your life and said, you know, it's just convenient to move in together. And which is, if that's your choice, that's fine. That's up to you. But what I'm saying is that convenience will not keep the marriage or keep the relationship strong, but the covenant will. When you say, hey, before we move in together, before we have a child together, before we do anything together, let's commit. Let's have this covenant. Let's have a wedding ceremony, have witnesses, and let's make this covenant together. Going into it with that commitment, it changes everything. Now, I'm not saying just because you have a wedding ceremony and you show that everything's going to go well. We know divorce rate's high, and how to continue a healthy marriage is another topic. But what I'm telling you right now is starting. How important it is to start in a way that God has designed us to do in our relationship, and especially in our romantic relationship. And it was meant to be a covenant love. That commitment that begins with it takes away the conveniency. You don't think like, oh, you know, we just got together and we just started to live together, moved in, that's it, and that's how it's been. You know, we want to hear things like, you know, I saw good things in this person, and I saw that God wanted us to be together, and I decided I'm going to commit. And that commitment is the reason why we're together today. It's so powerful when you could say something like that. That kind of love does reflect how God loves us, because God commits to us. He'll never abandon us. He never sees any type of conveniency, but he says, you know what? I know it's hard, but I'm going to commit to you. I mean, imagine God loving us, seeing how we were as a human. We're rebellious. We do what we want to do. I mean, that is a huge commitment that he's making. And to me, that makes his love so great, so wonderful. And we want to see that in our partner when we're starting this type of journey. And the marriage is supposed to reflect the same faithfulness that God has for us. And, you know, people may say, but we do have a covenant. You might say, we do. We didn't get married, but we do. And we're committed to each other. We just don't have the marriage. The reality of this, though, is it's actually harder to say that there is a covenant without that commitment, without the public commitment, accountability. And the word that I want to bring up is risk. Because a common law relationship actually removes of that risk. Marriage actually introduces the risk. And now, I'm not saying all risk-taking is healthy. I'm talking about in the marriage, there are risks, and this is actually something really beautiful. And so when God decided to love us, he actually took a risk. He knew how rebellious we could be. He knew how we could turn away, but he took the risk to love us. And this is the special thing about true love, the covenant love. And when we are getting married, we are taking a risk. And I know that these are maybe not biblical things, but it is what the world that we're living in right now. And when you get married, you get a marriage certificate, and there's a lot of legal things that comes with it. And when you, let's say, over the years, many, many years later, you do decide to get divorced, there's a lot of legal thing that gets involved with finances, alimonies, and child support, and all these things. And yes, it gets very ugly in those situations, but this is why when you're actually committing to a marriage, you're like, I'm going to take that risk. I know all those things can happen, but I'm risking it because I do believe that God sent me this partner and I love her and I'm going to commit to her even through the risk. And I just want to ask you, if you are that person trying to choose between someone that just wants to be a common law and someone that wants to actually be your spouse and take that risk, which one would you see to love more? And I personally, for me, I would say the person that wants to get married. That person shows more love because the risk that they're willing to take. So real love always involves risk. And if there's no risk, there is often no real sacrifice. And the love of Jesus, man, that's the best example of sacrifice. Jesus sacrificed everything for us, and that's what it is. Love involves risk, which involves real sacrifice. And, he still chooses to love us today. God still chooses to love us today, and that is so amazing. I just want to copy that type of love to my spouse, to my wife. And, so I want you to know that there is something special about this, and I'm not trying to pick on people again about this topic, but I really want to show you how special it is when you could really experience true love, true covenant, true connection. And to experience this, again, going back to that topic a little bit I went into, is I'm not saying just to get married with anyone. I'm not really trying not to say that. And if you want to truly, you're listening to me and you're like, Shion, I really want to experience this covenant type of this God's covenant type of marriage. How do I do this? I would say, well, you have to be with someone that God has guided us or taught us to be with, and in the Bible, it gives us so many encouragement of what type of person that we should look for our future spouse. And I would simply just say it should be someone that fears and respects God, someone that honors God, shows their faithfulness, integrity, especially maybe you see them at work or church, how they are with friends, and you could say, hey, they're very faithful. They demonstrate self-control. They're not just addicted to things and, easily fall into temptation, but they have a good self-control and humility. They're very humble. They're not prideful, but humble. Willing to sacrifice for others. Someone that's willing to help people when they're in need of help. And someone that's committed to grow and to be held accountable, saying, hey, I'm a human being too, and I need to learn and to grow. These are some of the things that is listed in the Bible that God encourages someone to be with as our future spouse. And we definitely just say, look at the life of Jesus. Look at Jesus and say, that is the type of spouse that we want to find. These are the kind of qualities that would make a covenant love sustainable. And so we need to understand that covenant love requires character. Some of the things that I just mentioned to right now, these are character. It's not about emotion. A lot of times we just go with our emotions, say, well, I love that person. I feel like that person is awesome. And I just want to be with them. But we cannot just go off our emotion. We really need to see their character, or else without this character, it's hard to show this covenant type of love. And sometimes people say, well, I'm not sure if this person is the right person for me, and that's why I'm not getting married. But then you ask another question, how long have you been together for? Maybe 5 years, 7 years, 10 years. And if you already have been with someone for many years and you still feel uncertain that they are the right person, that is an important sign. You have to, and this is where you have to ask yourself, why am I still in this relationship? If you have not been certain for many, many years, why are you still with that person? And if deep inside you feel this person may not be the right person, it may actually be better not to continue that relationship. And I know it's hard. It's not easy. I mean, talking about 10 years relationship and going separate ways, I mean, I can't imagine that. But it is better to go separate ways instead of trying to make something work and get married when you already know that you're questioning that person. You're uncertain about that person's character. You're uncertain about the person's commitment. And you really have to ask yourself, why am I in this? Should I really continue this relationship? Because staying in a long-term relationship without clarity can create even more confusion and pain later. So what I'm trying to say is, yes, 10 years, breakup, separation, it's not easy. But you are preventing a severe or more pain in the future. And God is really trying to look out for us. And so make sure you're not going by emotions, but we're thinking logically and rationally and looking at character. And I want to bring this up too. It just came to my mind right now is, yes, you could be so scrutinizing and be like, does that person have this character of God, character of Jesus? But the also important question to ask is, do you have the character of Christ? You know, we also have to be willing to be the spouse that's willing to make this kind of covenant, this kind of commitment. And so we need to ask ourselves too, do we have the character of Jesus? And if we don't, then that's something that we need to pray and to ask God to help us and to work on. And so this is such an important thing to think about. And this question, this conversation, everything that we're just mentioning, it is especially important for families. And, some of you, again, maybe you've been common laws dating for a long period of time and you guys have children. And we need to understand that this does affect our children. And when it comes to mental health, we want to be concerned for our child's mental health also. And so when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about how does our children get affected by this topic.
You're listening to Be Renewed with Shion Shironishi. Your questions are welcome at 671-686-9999. The show continues in just a moment, so don't go anywhere.
There's more to life than existing, but the truth is there are days when you're just satisfied making it through because you're simply existing. You feel like the best you can do is take up space. This isn't the place God made for you. There are moments of awe found even in things that typically leave you yawning. Discover purposes. Deliver praise. There's reason to rejoice today. Joy FM.
This is Be Renewed. Here we combine practical guidance with your anonymous questions by call, text, or WhatsApp to 671-686-9999. Now back to the show with Shion Shironishi.
All right, we're going to go into the topic of why is marriage important for the next generation. And again, this conversation that we're having is so important for families. And children are learning by watching and looking at their parents. And they learn what love looks like, how sacrifice looks like, how commitment looks like. And so when marriage is honored, it sends a message to the next generation that commitment matters. I don't know about you guys, but when you watch how the world is going and you might see some movies out there and how they're portraying love, it's definitely different from the past. I don't know about you guys, but if you watch movies like from the 50s or 60s, or I don't know how old you want to go to, but there's a slight difference of how they're portraying relationship, dating, marriage. It seems like right now there's lack of commitment. There's this thing about having multiple partners or just dating around, and the children are not seeing what true covenant committed relationship looks like. And if you are showing that to your own children, it's really something to think about regards to marriage is, am I showing my children true commitment, what true relationship, true love looks like? And sometimes it's better to get married if you have children. It does help to build stability instead of constantly thinking about who else you can, maybe be with. It's the children might start thinking, well, who's the next partner? I don't know. There's a lot of thoughts where the children have, which I counseled, and they do worry about their parents who are not married. They think, well, are they going to split one day? And I know, again, with marriages, you could get divorced, but for some reason, kids that have parents that are common laws do feel like their parents' relationship is unstable, and that anytime they could just separate. And I've seen this more with people that parents are unmarried, not married, and versus parents that are married. And it's important, that the children find that they are secured in the family, and the parents could really do this, and most importantly through their marriage. And so, I really think that if you are struggling with maybe thinking, who else can I be with? Maybe you are common laws and you're getting tired of each other and you're saying, you know what, I need to find a different partner. I really want to encourage you, if you are actually saying, who else could I be with? Ask a better question. Am I building a stable family? Am I bringing security to my children? Because that is a priority. That is important. And it's not too late. Maybe you've been together for many years. You've been a boyfriend, girlfriend for a long time, or common law living. You can choose today to commit, just because I remember going back to convenience. You might be like, well, it's just convenient to continue the way we've been doing it. But remember, convenient can be just broken up anytime. But if you choose to commit today, you will go into a stable relationship, stable family relationship, and it can bring such a healthy environment. And so we need to say, hey, it's not too late. I can choose today to commit. And you know what? We're going to do what God is leading us to do. And I really want to encourage you to think about that. And how often, people have come and see me for mental health struggles, and they come in thinking, having issues like I'm anxious, I'm stressed, and they're depressed. But when we talk about more and more about what is the cause of this, a lot of times it's instability, and especially with children, they talk about the instability in their parents' relationship. And so the kids are looking for security, and we need to provide that to them and give them this understanding that, hey, you know what, maybe mom and dad didn't really have the commitment, but we are making it right now. And I want you to see this so that one day when you get older, you'll find someone that's willing to make this kind of commitment. It does something for us. And, being a child, now, my parents were married, and so there weren't situations like common law or, but they were married and I was born. But some of you guys know my story that my dad left when I was 9 years old. He just picked up everything and he left myself, my sisters, and my mom. And we were living in California at that moment, and he went back to Japan. And yes, it's a different scenario, but just to show you that how much I was affected by that was I felt unsafe. I felt that it was my fault that my dad left, or I saw that, people could just go and leave any time. And that made me feel anxious. That made me feel like I need to please people, make them happy so that no one will ever leave me. And this is where my social anxiety came about. And I had severe anxiety trying to make everyone happy, trying to look cool, trying to sound cool. But it all led me to depression, and I was stressed and sad and got into bad crowds and toxic relationships. And this is what happens when a child's left with thinking, I don't feel safe. My parents, their relationship is unstable, and I don't know what healthy relationship looks like. And so I don't want children to experience what I experienced. This is why I bring this up. This is why I want to help you. I'm not saying these things to judge you or to condemn you, but because I experienced what I experienced, I want to help you and your children. And so making this commitment will make a huge difference. And you'll see that a change will occur not just to your relationship, but in your children's mental and emotional health. You might not recognize it right now, but you may see it later, that you'll be like, wow, my children seems more happy. They're smiling more. I've seen this happen many times. And I've seen patients of mine who have children and they've decided to commit to each other and they get married. I saw that their children were happier and more feeling more safe. And I want to encourage this type of family dynamic. We want to help our next generation to grow up to understand what is true love, what is true commitment, what is covenant, what does that look like? And you guys could be, as parents, you guys could be the start. If you're not married, and if you're common laws, you could get married and to start showing this. And, maybe by listening to this today, you're thinking, well, and maybe if you're common laws, your boyfriend, girlfriend living together, and maybe you're thinking, well, I don't know. I'm not sure about it. It's okay. I'm not saying you have to be convicted today and then tomorrow go get married. But I'm just introducing to you something to start a conversation. All it takes is just starting a conversation saying, hey, where is our relationship at? Do you feel safe? Do you feel secure? Do you feel like that I'm committed to you, or are we committed to each other? These open discussion conversation will help to start and to see, what does your partner think about it? What do you think about it? And to share. And as you conversate, you grow together, you agree together. You want to definitely agree on this. We don't want one person just to be like, hey, Shion said this, so we got to go get married. Now, and the other person's like, well, okay, well, I guess I'll do whatever you say. No, we got to, two people need to come to an agreement and to say, we want to both make this commitment together. And it all starts with a conversation. It's not complicated. And if it gets heated, this is where a counselor could be helpful. Maybe you do need a third person to come in who does not have who's not on anyone's side and could say, hey, I'm just here to guide a conversation. And they could help you to guide you through the direction of which way to go from this relationship. And like I told you, just to give you some scenarios, is yes, it could go any direction. I've had a couple come in and they both decided that, you know what, actually it's best not to be together. And they've been falling into the convenience of the relationship and they just continued it just because. And so, they some of them have separated and some of them have committed and they said we should get married, and they got married. And they started a new covenant relationship, new journey together. And so different scenarios, different stories for each one of us. All I'm saying is it all starts with a conversation to find that direction. We don't know. We don't know what that is till we start this conversation. And I am so happy that people do come to me for help. And I'm so glad I'm happy to help them. And I do want to tell you, I know it's a vulnerable thing to go to a counselor, especially a relationship type of counseling, but it can be helpful. It can be really healing. It can bring healing to the relationship. And I just want you to know that even if you don't feel like going, there is someone out there that is willing to listen, willing to counsel you, and that's God. God is there no matter what. And if you read the Bible gives you many tips and understanding about this. I mean, I mentioned to you already a few things and from the Bible, and it's helpful. I did that when I first started dating my wife, and especially when we started to talk about the engagement, we decided to seek out from God and read the Bible, and we did go to a pastor who really helped us. And so start with God, and He'll guide you. And so, let me leave you with this thought that love is not proven by how long people stay together when things are easy, or love is proven by the commitment to stay when things are difficult. And marriage creates a covenant that strengthens that commitment. So it's not the ceremony, it's not the contract, but it's a promise that we're making before God. And that promise has the power to build strong families, strong communities, and strong hearts. So thank you for joining us today on Be Renewed. Remember, transformation starts in the mind. And when your mind is renewed, your life and relationship can be transformed. So I'm Shion Shironishi. And until next time, keep seeking renewal and live in God's design.
That's it for today's Be Renewed. Remember, this show offers guidance and inspiration, not professional mental health care. If you need help, please consult a licensed professional. Thanks for listening, and please join us again next week at this same time.